Really pretty simple, and it shouldn't be shocking, and yet people forget it. So most really great businesses, the ones that rise to the top of the heap, you find two things about them that you do not find about a lot of other businesses. One is somewhere there's at least one big radical idea. And often, without history, what was radical at its time is no longer radical and doesn't seem radical to us. So it's useful when you see highly successful individuals or highly successful businesses that you think are worth modeling, maybe. It's useful to look at their history to see how radical the ideas were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever it is that they made their play. There was a generation of, for example, highly successful professional comedians, way before YouTube and internet and all of that. The Bob Newhart era of still, actually very few comedy clubs even. They actually made the comedy club industry by their own popularity. Guys opened clubs because if you booked one of these guys, people came. Business doesn't work that way now. But if you went and you looked at that 10-year period of time, what triggered that? There was a handful of radicals who agreed to make comedy records. So we don't think anything of any of this now, that comedians can be seen on TV, they can be seen on YouTube, you can get all their old stuff on YouTube, you can get MP3 downloads, you can buy recordings if you want them. They're all out in the marketplace. At the time, everybody, the record companies went to guys like Newhart and Berman, and they wanted to do, and everybody was terrified of this, because if people can hear our act, they won't want to come see us. And we make our living in Vegas and Atlantic City and in New York and LA, where there were comedy clubs. We'll kill our careers with this. Making a record with your act on it was a radical, big idea. And in the entire first 3 years, there were fewer than 12 comedians who dared to do it. And it literally made them the superstar money earners of their tribe of the time with this incredibly strange, scary idea. Newhart, I just wrote about this somewhere. His first record knocked the Beatles, because they didn't have a separate category at the time for spoken word. He knocked the Beatles out of the #1 spot, and then he held it for 16 months with a comedy record that people sat around in their living room and watched the record player while they listened to. By the way, the stuff holds up. I just listened to all of his old albums over the last couple of weeks in the car. Most of it holds up. It's fine, and it's funny, and it works still today. But that's not my point. My point is, behind these guys, if you looked at them, here was this big radical thing they did that almost nobody else did or was willing to do for quite some time. The second thing is, so I'll give you two of mine. So the big radical idea early for me was that I could actually take large numbers of small business owners and change their entire belief system about the business that they were in. Now, this is no longer a big radical thing. Okay? So teaching the business owner that, no, you're not in the shoe repair business, You're not in the chiropractic business. You're not in the law business. You're in the marketing business. This is no longer a radical idea, certainly amongst us, right? You guys all get it. And any of you who teach in niches, you teach it. I started it. You now all teach the same thing. And it has proliferated through. Now, it's still a minority position, understand. It's not the way most think in any niche. Your guy comes to the office in the morning, he thinks of himself as a lawyer, right? If you ask him at a cocktail party, what do? He says, I'm a lawyer. He doesn't say, I market legal services. Right? So it's still a minority position. But it's nowhere near the freakazoid position that it was when I decided you could build a business on this idea. That I was going to carve out a number of people who owned a vast diversity of businesses and persuade them they weren't in the business they believed in themselves to be in, so that they would focus on this other thing as actually the business. I mean, you have to understand, when I started saying this, and when guys like Joe Polish, when we started to say it to carpet cleaners, this was completely unwelcome, it was entirely radical, and it was really hard to get anybody to buy into. The second thing, specific to my speaking, is I made the decision to be a farmer, not a pirate. This was a big radical idea, and it's still a minority position. Right? But as I said often, I quickly figured out speaking was a really shitty business. Right? At best, it's a high-paid job, but it ain't a business. But it's great media. Because as long as you don't mind doing the work, we were talking about this yesterday, of course, it maybe is still the best media of all. As long as you don't mind going and doing it, because not only don't you have to pay anything, they pay you to go get a basket of customers. Well, there is no other media that does that. Zuckerberg's not going to write you a check to do your Facebook marketing. It's not going to happen. Right? The newspaper's not going to cut you a check to run an ad. You got to pay them, speaking media. But all speakers in my time, they were all pirates. Right? We leave the cave. We go plunder. We bring the plunder back to the cave. If we have staff, we divide it up with the staff. We keep what's left. And then we go plunder again. Well, I mean, that's the life, right? And pretty much most of them of my time did their whole life this way. So everybody who kind of was one 10-year window ahead of me, whose names you would know, we'll put Zig in that category, and everybody who kind of started at the same time I did, Mark Hansen, right? What changed Mark's life was Chicken Soup for the Soul, not a strategic decision he made about speaking. So everybody who kind of came up with me, they're still playing pirate. Most of them are having to sail the ship farther to go play. I mean, I'm going to Austria once this year, and, God knows why, but I am. But like they have to leave the cave and sail to Bulgaria every week now because there's no treasure left in California. They can't fill a room. But they're still being pirates. Right? And that's the problem with being a pirate, is there might not be any treasure one day. So I became a farmer. Use it to grow things that I kept and that still had value. So it's always instructive. It's sort of the proof of that pudding. You'll learn more if you look around. So first of all, how many in here originated with me by being in an audience where I spoke somewhere? Raise your hands. Everybody look around. Now keep your hands up if your longevity is 5 years or longer that you have been with me and you originated from, okay? 10 years. 15. All right, now put them back up if you think you've spent over $100,000 total. Dan, GKIC, everything, and came from that source. Okay? I promise you there's nobody on the pirate list who can do the same thing. I know them all. I've consulted with most of them. And I don't say it to be disrespectful. I'm just saying there's an example of a big, and at its time certainly, radical idea. Now, how does that get applied strategically? For example, when I couldn't afford it, when I was broke, I turned down speaking engagements, paid speaking engagements, because they wouldn't harvest people who would still be here 10 years from now and giving me money. So I didn't go. Everybody else, all the pirates, they would go anywhere for any price to any audience that would have them. That's how the pirates operated. You'll let me come? I don't care. There are a bunch of electrical engineers who will never spend a penny again and won't like me being there, and I'm the after-dinner speaker interrupting the booze, and I'll come. I did that once. I said, okay, wrong audience, wrong people. They don't want me there. I don't want to be there. Let's see what's wrong with this picture. Okay? But understand, this was like witching the public square stuff. What do you mean you turn down gigs? Well, because I don't get to farm out of there. I don't want to go if I can't farm. Okay? So you find this big radical idea stuff behind really every big success if you look. And you ought not ever settle for not seeing it if you are going to model something you think is successful, because it is hidden there. There's a whole big story. I just read a biography on a Letterman, so it's fresh in my head. But there's other books. There's like 5 or 6 books about the late night wars. The Letterman biography is relatively new, and it's worth reading for a variety of reasons. But, you know, Letterman was supposed to get the Tonight Show after Carson. He wanted the Tonight Show after Carson. Everybody thought he was going to get the Tonight Show after Carson, and Leno got the Tonight Show after Carson. He was not Johnny's pick, which Carson let be known. And so what Leno did that is not visible in order to sabotage Dave and wrest the thing away from him, a lot of people don't know it. You got to like study it a little to know it. But if you wanted to be the next guy who gets it after Fallon, and you studied just Leno on the surface and Letterman on the surface, said, oh, you need to be a little less acerbic, and you need to be, I'll model him, and you didn't know this, your modeling's all flawed. Just in short, just so you know, Leno made a big deal about traveling relentlessly all around the country and befriending all the NBC affiliates. And Letterman didn't. And so Leno sabotaged him at the affiliate level to the point that they would have mutinied if it wasn't Leno. But if you just looked at the two of them and said, okay, I'll model Leno's delivery and appearance and the way he works an audience and his monologue, because that's now how I want to get this job, you would not get the job. So then the second thing is most great businesses are about something other than just their commerce. That's not to say that you should be in business for reasons other than the commerce. I don't mean that. That you should be running a charity because you're just getting your own way. But in addition to commerce, great businesses tend to be about something, some grand idea, mission, positioning, philosophy, something that everybody can kind of hook on to. And the businesses that really go awry, you see that they were really successful, and then you see them fail. It's almost never that market conditions have changed and done them in. Right? So we all know Sears is dead. They're still walking around out there, but they're dead. If you go up and push them, they'll fall over. Right? And Penny's is nearly to the same point. And most people now say, well, it's part of the retail ice age, and they're in the middle, and they got squeezed, and Amazon's killing them. But 2 months ago, because I'm repositioning all the books in my house, I have J.C. Penney's autobiography, which was published in 1950-something. If you go read J.C. Penney's autobiography, you know exactly why Penney's is all screwed up, right, and why they're going to go away. And it has not one damn thing to do with Amazon. It has to do with the fact that Penney's was about something. And gradually, over a period of time, they became about nothing except commerce. And then they went into their death spiral. So those are 2 things. Principle number 5, on whatever page it is on. So here's what I find with clients all the time. Often it's in the category of legal, but sometimes it's in other categories. They have a belief system about how they are limited in one way, shape, or form. So every client, and they all think it's unique, by the way. If they were just in some other business, they wouldn't have this problem. So the legal stuff is they want to tell me about their compliance stuff. So the lawyers will all tell you about all the shit they can't do. By law, we can't do that. The financial people will all tell you. So the first thing a financial person will tell you is we can't use testimonials. There's 16 different ways they can legally use testimonials. Even registered investment advisors can use testimonials. But they will immediately tell you, we can't, no, we can't use that. Right? About 50% of the refunds over all the years of magnetic marketing systems, if they come back with a note about why they're returning it, it's because I'm a blank and we can't use any of this by law. What you will almost always find if you probe is something that looks like this. There's a dot on it. It's not in your book. Okay? We spare no expense. You will find there is a real limit somewhere. There is actually a law about what they can and cannot do. And it may be an industry law, a professional law, a Federal Trade Commission law, an FDA law, an SEC law, the law of gravity, the law of God, whatever. There's actually a real limit. Then they have this box they've made of the limits they believe in. And there's this giant gap in between the two. Mostly they are in love with this line. They sleep with it every night. They have sex with it. They talk to it. They believe in it, like they believe their religion, and they hate being disabused of this, in part because they've been conforming to it for some significant period of time. So we just had a conversation on price. So price is a perfect example. They will quote to me a variety of real limit things about price, right? We can't sell for that price because we got 56 competitors within walking distance. Same shit we sell is sold at Amazon. We have a dwindling number of customers. They got all kind of reasons to defend their self-imposed limit about what they can and cannot do with pricing. Geography is another one. All right? So they will have, if they're a small business owner, they have the 5-mile and 15-mile limit. All right? So what they devoutly believe, here's my business, and they will tell you either I can only get customers from a 5-mile radius, or I get most of my customers from a 5-mile radius and I get a few from 15 miles. But nobody else, we can't get any customers from beyond a 5-mile radius. And that's how they do all their marketing decisions, by the way, is they get a map, figuratively or literally, and they put their thumb down where their business is, and they draw a circle that's a 5-mile radius, and that's how they pick their zip codes for Valpak. That's how they do Google local search. That's how they do everything, right? And they devoutly believe it to be true. And even when you present them empirical evidence of how wrong it is, even when you're not actually breaking the box for the first time, when there is actual evidence that that is essentially in your head. It's not in real life. I have people pay me a lot of money and then fight me to the death about this. Right? Even when there's evidence. And you have to be very careful of it. And if you stack people up around you, you have to really be careful of it. Because even if you are conscious of it, now the team you build around you, remember, this is how they operate in business and in life. And so the dotted line becomes for them a solid line. That's what happens. This is Johnny won't eat broccoli. Well, it's what it is. Understand? Because I can't get Johnny to eat broccoli. Johnny won't eat broccoli. The dotted line now becomes a hard line, and we just never try and serve Johnny broccoli because he ain't going to eat broccoli. Right? I briefly, in between marriages, I dated 2 different women. The first one was relatively poor, and she had 3 children who would not eat salad. Fixed it in 2 days. It's really very simple. They'll eat salad or they won't eat anything. This is watch me solve this problem. Because I haven't been living inside this box with these 3 nitwits for 12 years. I'm new. I don't have this religion you got that you've bought into. I'll fix this. Watch. Simple. Home Depot, place I rarely go. Home Depot sells chain, and Home Depot sells big-ass locks. Chain around refrigerator, big-ass lock. Chain through all the cupboard doors, big-ass locks. Guess what? Can't get any food. Go out to dinner. Junk place, you know, pizza, sandwiches, stuff they'll eat, right? Everybody's going to have a salad first. No, they're not going to, fine. Sorry, you should. They're just not going to get anything else to eat. I'm going to eat. I suggest you eat. But they're just not going to get anything else to eat. This took 2 days. That's all it took. 3 of them, or 2 of the 3, actually discovered, shit, we kind of like salad. So no shit, right? 15-year-old's got a little muffin top girl, right? I said, you know, short period of time, you ain't going to be getting any action if you don't get rid of this baby. Salad will get rid of this baby. No shit. Nobody's ever told me that. You know, I mean, it's not. But this is the way it is with everybody. So I do this with business people all the time. You know, I have this same conversation. Oh no, we can never get our employees to do that. So, well, they don't do that. They don't get a paycheck. Some will quit, which is a good thing. Okay? The others will want their paycheck. And on Friday, when everybody's supposed to get a check, you go, no checks this week. You didn't want to do X? You didn't do X. I don't want to give out paychecks. We should all get to do what we want to do. See everybody on Monday. Yeah, you're going to have to fill out some friggin' forms because someone's going to march down to the Bureau of Dysfunctional People. I mean, but guess what? Most of it, you're going to win the argument. All right? Happens all the time. So understand that what Walt Disney recognized in Florida is it only stays a swamp if everybody agrees it's a swamp. And it would still be a damn swamp if everybody agreed it was nothing but a swamp. If one person dissents, everything can change. One guy says, it don't have to be a swamp. Yeah, but it's Florida. And you can't, land is so poor you can never, no, it don't have to be a swamp. We can figure this out. We can drain it. We can fill it in. We can throw enough people in that what the alligators turn into compost, that'll fill it in. We can put wood over it. We can do something. It don't have to be a useless swamp. And 5,000 engineers say it's a swamp. And one guy, that's all it takes, says don't have to be a swamp. That's essentially what we all do and that we need to do more of. So every time they come and they say, well, no, we can't do that, and here's why. Sometimes there's 20 of them at a meeting, and I'm the only guy there. That's what I'm getting my money for. I'm saying, no, it doesn't have to be that. There's some way we can use testimonials without everybody going to jail. And the main reason you don't know it is because everybody around you says you can't use testimonials. You've never actually looked at the letter of the law. You got a bunch of compliance morons who hang out with a bunch of other compliance morons who've never really looked at the letter of the law. Some way we can make this swamp something other than a swamp. It's not an easy thing to do. And when you get people around you, it gets harder and harder and harder. The latest crap going on now with little kids is they're not taking their devices away from them at bedtime. I don't know if you know this. The parents have surrendered. We can't take them away because the kids throw a tantrum and they scream and holler and they won't sleep. So we're letting the 8-year-old sleep with his device. Dotted line, that's a box, Dave. I said to a friend of ours the other day, you want me to fix that? I can fix that in 2 days. Just move out, I'll move in, I promise you. When you come back in 2 days, the kid will be sleeping without his device. Watch me. What are you going to do? I said, the kid probably wants to eat. I said, I've already done this once. Okay? It doesn't matter what behavior I'm trying to change. I now know the system. Chain, lock, food, I got it, right? I'll fix this for you, right? Yeah, but all his buddies, all the 8-year-olds sleep with their devices. That's the next thing that happens, right? So this goes on constantly. And every time you hear it from yourself or from anybody else, you hear a dotted line verbally described. No, we can't do that because. You got to be smart enough to instantly recognize what it is. It's somebody's dotted line. That's what it is. And there is a real limit somewhere, but it's a long way away from the dotted line. And what top performers do is they understand this. They recognize it. So now I made fun of them earlier. So Darren's a great example of geography. Okay? So almost all real estate on earth, residential and commercial, certainly in the United States and Canada, how is the business done? The business is done, where'd my little expensive graphic go? The business is done basically like this, right? The real limit, here's the United States of America, all 51 states. Well, Puerto Rico's coming. Obama said there was 57 once. The governor of Virginia yesterday said 93 billion people a day in the United States die from gun violence. He's barely been made fun of. Imagine if Trump said it. Holy shit. Or Sarah Palin said it. Oh my God. This guy gets a pass. 93 million people a day die from gun violence. Fuck, we're all dead in about 4 days. This problem, I mean, gun control, this problem solves itself by Friday. Right? I mean, good news, you know? I mean, so here's how real estate is done, right? Here's the town we're in. Here's all the real estate there is to sell. And here's all the people there are to sell it to, pretty much. Commercial more than residential, right? Who's going to buy a shopping center? Somebody who lives where the shopping center is. That's how the business is done. All right? Who says that has to be how the business is done? Now, where you see it deviated is sexy stuff. So you see Vegas real estate sold to people who don't live in Vegas. Right? There's a radio campaign. If you haven't heard it, it's on Sirius. They're selling New York stuff. Have you heard this, Darren? It's on Sirius, on all the financial channels. You should hear it. It's New York, prime New York real estate. Brooklyn. Right? It's your pitch, by the way. It's exactly your pitch. But, I mean, it's New York. It's sexy. Right? What Darren did is Iowa. Iowa blew up the line. Guess what? People will invest, buy pieces of shopping centers and apartment buildings and other kinds of commercial properties, storage centers in Iowa. Some of you don't even know where Iowa is. Okay? From not only all across the country, even from outside the United States of America. And they'll buy it sight friggin' unseen. Unheard of at the time. If you went and got every commercial real estate broker in Iowa together and said, here's my idea, what would they all say? Oh yeah, they'd laugh you out of the room, and they'd probably have 62 reasons why it's illegal to do it, you can't do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, what is this? This is the IBD ad. Paranoid Iowa banker reveals 4 simple investments that he uses that produce double-digit returns. So it's a lead generation ad. Right? You've used Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily. Anything else?
A couple conservative email lists for conservative magazine publications. That's about it.
Okay. And all that drives leads who in turn are sold entire or pieces of commercial real estate, right, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Famous for nothing. Nothing. The good news, by the way, from a real estate investor standpoint is nothing happens. Every 50 years there's a locust attack. Every once in a while there's a flood, but it's only in one part of town. You don't have to be there. Other than that, nothing happens. Ever. Nothing. shit don't go up very much. It don't go down very much. People move in. They stay till they die. Okay? We were joking this morning. He's now having to do, in some of the apartment buildings, we're having to do, what did you call it? A mandatory welfare check, which is coming around to make sure the tenant's still alive, right? And I said, if you got them on auto pay, they don't answer the door, spray some Febreze under the, and check again next month, right? I mean, and you think I'm being funny. Sorry, I'm not being funny. So his real estate business looks entirely different. Now, how many commercial real estate brokers are there in the country? And how many of them would we guess are barely making a living? 80% of them, of course, because the pyramid doesn't change. Understand? And how many of them, even if we put them in a room and we showed them exactly what he's doing, how many of them would go back to Akron, Ohio, or bumfuck Utah, or wherever they are, and try and do the same thing? 1%. Bingo! You get it. That's exactly what would happen. If we put 100 of them in a room and we showed them everything, one would go try and do it. The other 99 would go home and do the same crap they've been doing, the same way they've been doing, and they would get together with each other in a bar and they would recite their dotted line list to each other. That's what they would do. That would be their conversation at the end of the day. They all get together and they recite the dotted lines. One guy would go up to his room, ignore everybody, call his wife and say, you ain't going to believe this. We're going to start selling apartment buildings in bumfuck Utah to people in Japan. Wait till you see this when I get home. All right? I'm staying up all night working on it. One guy, that's what would happen. Or gal, you understand when I say guy, I mean any of the genders that are now represented on the planet. It's a nod to GKIC. They want me to be more contemporarily sensitive. So every once in a while, give them what they ask for. Okay. Principle number 6, which is your page something. Thank you very much. It's your page 14. So the other two things when you look at history of successes is it's important to understand almost nothing big, nothing of significance started out to be what it now is or as big as it is. So when you are starting on a path, if it's not exactly going, that's okay. Because whatever you do, it's probably not going to be exactly what you started out it to be. Amazon, remember, started out to be an online bookstore. That's what it started out to be. It evolved as he evolved. And its total evolution has gone from, we started out to sell books online, to we want to eliminate books altogether. Well, he said it. I'm not saying anything he didn't say. He said, I've come to the conclusion there's no reason to have a book. Right? It's a digital thing. All the way now to, by the end of this calendar year, they're going to have 17 brick and mortar bookstores open. So it went from, we're going to sell books online, to we're going to sell books online and we're going to eliminate all the bookstores, to screw it, we're going to eliminate all the books. All the way back to, we're going to own bookstores, for God's sakes. All right? Now, I mean, seriously, if you don't have a certain level of strategic flexibility, underneath your governing principles, that, Facebook, what did it start out to be? Yeah, how college students could hook up and get laid. That's what it started out to be. Is we're going to have a little more efficient process for this than having to get drunk and find each other on the village green. Okay? That's what it started out to be. Then it was, okay, kind of more legitimate. It's going to be social media. It is no more social media than I am. It has evolved dramatically. If you listen to Gene Simmons, so when Gene spoke for us at the super conference, however many years ago that was, I think he said it from the stage, but I had asked him downstairs. I said, so what did KISS start out to be? He said, a way for us to feed ourselves and do well with girls. That's what it started out to be. It didn't start out to be one of the 20 largest licensing firms in the country. That's not what it started out to be, but that's what it became. Of course, from a deal standpoint, he kept all the rights, and that's all other covers. So Home Shopping Network. There's Home Shopping Network, and there's QVC, and there's a couple smaller ones. Has everybody at least seen either QVC or HSN? Raise your hands. Good. How many have bought something from one or the other? Raise your hands nice and proud. How many buy often? Yeah, okay, one in the back. Okay. You should buy more often. You should watch more often, all right? Because it's a high-pressure selling environment. So if you want to see people sell well, you watch them in a high-pressure environment. The clock is on. You got to do so much a minute or you ain't coming back, right? That's the way that deal works. So I saw the first day's broadcast of the Home Shopping Network in Tampa, Florida, on a local TV station owned by Bud Paxton. And I clicked into it. I was with a business partner at the time. I had a speaking engagement that morning. And so I popped the TV on in the morning while we're getting cold room service from the Holiday Inn, and we're getting dressed. And here is this show. It's got a sign, like this, okay, but with markers. Home Shopping TV. And it's got a woman at a card table with a phone, a horn, and a table next to her with crap on it, products. And she is picking up this thing and talking about it. And when the phone rings, she's answering it, talking to the person, and beeping a horn when they buy. This is what I'm watching. This thing was started to liquidate merchandise. That's what it was started for. Advertisers who couldn't pay their bills for the local TV station would give Bud their stuff, and he would take the stuff to collect his bill, and then he started this thing, instead of sending his kids to the swap meet, to sell the junk at time he couldn't sell in the first place. This is what HSN was. Nobody had this grand vision that we're going to dominate. We had a problem to solve, and here's my resources I got to solve it. Now, pretty quickly, oh shit, people are calling up and they're actually buying this stuff, right? Maybe we should give this a little thought. And I saw the first day's broadcast, and associate at the time turns at me and he says, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's like a bad Saturday Night Live skit. You expect Belushi with the blender and the fish and the, any minute. They got to be kidding me, all right? And if they had called me in a room, say, here's what I'm going to do. Watch this demo. Think I'm going on Shark Tank. And watch this demo, and okay, who wants to give me $300,000 for 10% of this thing? Please. Not to mention the fact there's all these laws. I mean, there's FTC compliance for all these claims. There's no compliance officer. There's on and on and on and on. So nothing big. if you look at anything big, it really didn't start out. I think Ranker just sold a cosmeceuticals firm. Proactive is its main product for $1.6 billion. They didn't, even being in skincare was the furthest thing from their minds or mine when I started to work with them. They did Think and Grow Rich, TV infomercial, largely because they were producing tapes for the get-rich and real estate guys who were doing TV infomercials, and Bill was smart enough to say, we're on the wrong side of this cash register. And if these morons can do this and sell all this shit, which we know how much they're selling because we're making it, we ought to be on the other side of the cash register. All right? And we did Think and Grow Rich, and then we did Tony. There was no plan of this is going to morph into a cosmetics company and a skincare company, and there was no thought of that. Right? We got a manufacturing facility so we can make tapes. Today it would be CDs. We can make them cheaper than anybody else because we actually make them. We're making them for everybody else. What they're doing to sell them ain't rocket science. We can do this better, right? We can go license a brand. We can get a celebrity. We're going to do this, and we're going to sell a lot of tapes. That's as far as this went at the time. All the rest of it came later. The GKIC you know today, it's not like there was a grand scheme here. There was, okay, I figured out, farmer, not pirate. This is just going out there and selling shit, getting a fee, and coming home. This is a crappy business, so I want customers, and I got to have something to dump them into. I need a basket. What's the basket going to be? Newsletter subscription. Then they'll pay us every month to stay in contact with them and sell them shit. That's the grand scheme, if there was one, right? So all businesses work off of evolution and revolution. That's what all great successes work off of. Most have some of both, as if you look at their journey over time. Almost all have evolution. They get to places they didn't predict they were going to go. They become things they didn't think they were going to become. They crawl up out of the muck, and they had fins, and now they got legs. I mean, so they are evolutionary. Right? I mean, if you look at the Disney original theory of business, it was we have a movie studio, we got merchandise, and we got parks. That's it. Look at the thing now. The evolution is unbelievable. Then there's revolutions, where they're either made or forced. Some new media comes along that changes everything. A law changes that changes everything. Reagan deregulated the TV airwaves, and you could do 30-minute infomercials. Before Ronald Reagan, you couldn't, all the way back to the 1950s. Right? So the legal change, shit, you can buy a half an hour. And they'll sell you half an hour in the dead of night for nothing because nobody knows what to do with it. So, boom, here's an industry. Right? And it was a revolutionary change for a few astute speakers who figured it out, or entrepreneur partners. So sometimes there's revolution. Sometimes it's made, sometimes it's forced. So for a company like Tupperware, which is a good example, their revolution was forced. So they were nearly dead when Rick Owens came in as CEO. And as Rick would tell you, they had no money. They were on cash flow fumes, and everything they had was old. Product was old. Literature was old, compensation plan was old, everything was old. Brochures, women had beehive hairdos in 1970 because the shit hadn't been updated since 1955. That's what they had. The revolution was we have core competencies that work and that we can improve on. And in foreign countries, this stuff is new. We can go to Honduras, and this is new shit. Here, it's old shit. We can go to Argentina, and this is new shit. This was their revolution. It was a geographic box change, and it was revolutionary, not evolutionary. In like, we got 90 days to get 5 countries humming because we're dying here. Now, they had core competencies, which they've strengthened. So it's always good in a business to figure out what your core competencies are. Here's theirs. Okay? This is why they're a successful company today. Number one is they're really good at recruiting up. That means they're good at getting people who shouldn't want to be Tupperware people to be Tupperware people. Recessions always help. And all the countries they went into, of course, are in permanent recession. So they're not recruiting, they're recruiting burnout real estate agent. They're recruiting burnout school teacher. They're not recruiting the toothless and shoeless from the mobile home park. Right? That's not their deal. So they're really good at recruiting up. Number two, they're really good at fast starts before people quit. They're really good at the first week. Get them a party, get people to a party, make money. They're really good at it. Number three, they're really good at the party itself. They got a home party that works. They got the right games, they got the right script, they got the right demo, they got the right order form, they got a party that works. 4, which is really important, they got a really good system to make sure each party books a party. This means I can recruit you if you only have one friend. That's all you need. One who'll put on a party for you. Because that party will cause another party, an endless chain of parties. So you can be the pariah of your town. You can be hated by everybody but one other woman. That's all you need. And we can make you work with their system. Very important. 5, they're really good at cost shifting. A business like this is all about taking a lot of the costs and putting them on the independent distributor. Think Uber, okay? Same game. How do we shift all the cost? They're really good at that. Those are their 5. So think about this. Advertising. When's the last time you saw a Tupperware TV commercial? Like never? Every once in a while they'll run recruiting stuff in the depth of the recession. Otherwise, no, they don't do any advertising. Hardly any magazine advertising. When's the last time you saw a full-page magazine ad for Tupperware? No. No. All that is shifted to the Tupperware person. Inventory. Who has the inventory? The Tupperware people have the inventory. Tupperware doesn't have the inventory. All that cost shifts, just like Henry Ford shifted it all to the dealer. The dealer system transformed the automobile industry because the dealer system shifts all the costs. Right, that's what it does. Right. They shifted all the distribution channel cost. So they don't have somebody sitting down. They don't have an office where Walmart is in Bentonville, and they don't have an office in New York, and they don't have salespeople calling on all these retailers. And no, they shifted all that cost over here. They just kept all the money. So they're really good at those 5 things. It's useful to know. By the way, if each party begets a party, this is what that looks like in math. Here's what that endless chain looks like. You start with 1, it begets 2 pretty quick. It's 32,768 home parties. You don't have to net a lot if you're the company out of each one of those to do okay. Right? And all she needed was one friend. One stinking friend. That's all she needed. Rick says, you can give me a leper. I can make $1 million from a leper because she'll have somebody who'll throw a party for her. And we're off to the races because we got these 5 things. So it's important to know what your core competencies are. the things that really drive and make you and or your business work. And 5's a pretty good number, by the way. It's not like you need 50. All right? You know, it's not like you got to be good at everything. All right? But you need some. And then evolution and revolution. A strategy for all this, I'm on your page 25. You guys are better at it than most. You get a couple gold stars. But hardly anybody is as good at this as they should be. For evolution and revolution to happen, for you to see things other people don't see and move from one place to the other, you need a crap load of input. You need to see a lot of stuff to find, for the one thing. You guys all know the magic trick, where the card raises out of the deck. What's it called, Ron? Rising card. You guys have all seen rising card. Magician fans the deck, and one card by itself, theoretically, rises up out of the deck. It's magic, right? Well, that's what happens if you have your head right about all this. A whole bunch of crap flows past you, and every once in a while, a card rises up out of the crap. Oh, shit, I can use that. Why hasn't anybody copied Buffett and all these public companies? A whole bunch of reasons. One is they don't even see it. I mean, they know it, but they don't. It's not a rising card for them. And then they go up meetings, and everybody gives them the 6,022 reasons why we shouldn't do that, and we can't do that, and Buffett's violating 6 million SEC rules by the way he does an annual shareholders meeting, and they hear all that, and it gets killed in committee, right? I mean, you'd have had the whole air traffic controller system privatized last week if we didn't have Congress. I can't really make an argument for not having Congress. Well, I can, but there's problems with emperors too. But I mean, you'd have just had it done. It makes perfect sense. It should have been done 20 years ago. But it will get killed in committee for a bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with the core matter of, is this a better way to do things than the way we're doing it now? But you don't have those problems. You're dictators. You're emperors. You can decide. But you need a lot of shit coming past you. I mean, you need to at least be skimming a lot. And if you're going to make choices, if you want to watch TV for 2 hours, watch something where there might be a rising card. There's a lot of it. I mean, if you don't perform, you might not want to watch much stand-up comedy. I want to watch some of it because there's rising cards there for me. But if you price by auction, you ought to watch auction shows. There might be a rising card for you. You can be entertained. You don't have to, right? I mean, and skim lots of magazines, lots of books, lots of people's newsletters, lots of people's stuff. I mean, I see people, they go to a trade show and they got a skinny bag after a day. I'm going, how can this be? What did you do all day? I got like 5 bags of shit. And I'm going to leave most of it in the hotel room, but a card's going to rise out of that, right? I mean, I got this flight I'm going to be on for 412 hours from Miranda. I mean, my carry-on is a knapsack full of magazines because I can discard 80% of it as I go. Whatever's left, I can drop in a FedEx envelope when I get there and FedEx back, and I can throw out the knapsack, right? Happy camper. Most of it is not, I got it here, I went through Airbnb magazine the other night. I don't give a shit about Airbnb. I'm never staying in an Airbnb, whatever, I don't care. I don't want to know. I am not interested in somebody's house. I won't even stay in a friend's house. I'm going to stay in a stranger's house? Is there room service? Did the dog have fleas? I mean, please. Yeah, the couch you sit on in your hotel suite, yes, there were people having sex on that. But they at least Febrezed that. The one in the house, they just packed their crap up for the weekend and handed you the key. You don't know what was going on that thing last night, and you don't want to know. What do you do, bring slip covers with you like grandma? I mean, the whole thing is bizarre to me. However, for reasons that will become apparent, I got the magazine. Now that I got it, I'll skim it. Guess what? I find two things clients ought to know. I got two different clients that this is something really relevant to them. And I'm betting they don't read Airbnb. Right? I get to look like a genius because I found this for them. I found something for a newsletter, and I actually found something we can use. Great. Okay? That's what you got to do. Because whatever you see controls what you can do. So, you know, most business people are completely Amish. I mean, they stay in a really small community with a really small group of peers. They belong to one peer association. They go to one meeting with a bunch of peers. I mean, they're really, really tight. The Amish are less Amish than most small business owners. Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. They all got smartphones now. They can't, their religion won't let them have them in the house, but they can have them for business. So they all got it was what every Amish person has now, an LLC and a smartphone. That's what they got. It's like just like you cheat in your religion, whatever it is. They're like cheating this thing 46 ways to Sunday, right? They're all on Facebook, for God's sakes, the Amish, right? Because they can be on it for business. This is their get out of the Ten Commandments free card now. Right? So they're less Amish than most small business people, right? You got to be like not even close to Amish. My old mentor said, if you can't take a notebook full of notes at a funeral, you're like doomed. You got to be able to take notes everywhere. Did you take notes? It's one of the three questions, right? When you come back from anything. One was, did you get a check? That was like question number one. I mean, but question number three was, did you take any notes? And pretty soon you got it, you know. Shit, I better come back with some notes, because otherwise I'm going to have to listen to 2 hours again of why you should take notes, right? This is how you get them to eat the damn Brussels sprouts, besides the chain, is the 2-hour lecture about Brussels sprouts. Person says, after 2 days of this, I don't care if I don't like them. I hate the 2-hour lecture. Worse, you know. So I mean, pretty much now you took notes. Oh, you went to the post office. Did you take any notes? Huh? Let me see your notes. Right? I'm going to take notes now. There's something to learn that I can make a note of. And if you get yourself in this mindset, you find a lot of shit worth taking notes about. I mean, I say every year, you got to go to Disney at least once a year, and do not take kids. Right? They're in the way. Don't even stand in line to get on an attraction if you don't want to. But take a lot of notes. If all you saw a year ago was the pin back trick, and you understood what you saw, you have to be able to go back to your business and find something that you do that is incomplete, that leaves somebody with a problem instead of a solution, that causes them some aggravation, that you can cure and get paid for the cure. You have to see it. But you ain't going to see it if you're not there with no kid taking notes. That's why I'm there, is to take notes. Now, if I also am entertained, and I'm also, by the way, here's a note. If it's 90 degrees or higher, and it's 80% humidity or higher, and you are at all subject to being queasy, don't ride the Seven Dwarfs mine train thing. It looks like a very benign, it ain't. Okay? It ain't. There's a note. So if you go everywhere, I'm going to get notes. Right? So here's what most people do at a GKIC super conference, for example. Here's what they do. Because 95% of the people, remember, are fucked up. So if you didn't know how to behave at a super conference, just look at what everybody else is doing. Yes, they're better than the general population of business owners. Our people are 10,000 times better. Still, if you put them in a population, they look like this instantly. 1% of them are super sharp and 4% of them are pretty smart. The rest of them, huh? So, what do they all do? They hang out with the same 5 friends they hang out with every year. Watch them. They sit together, they eat together, they go to the bar together, same 5 people. You already know them 5 people. And 4 of them are idiots. Meet somebody new, for God's sakes. No. So if you didn't know what to do, you just watch that 2 years in a row and say, okay, I don't guess I want to do that. All right? I mean, so you got to see as much as you can see. You got to be exposed to as much as you can be exposed to. Now there's an issue of democratic exposure, which you do have to watch out for now. Because, like, if you get all your news from Facebook, I'm sorry, but you didn't get much news today. If you get all your news from the Drudge Report, I'm sorry, but you didn't get much news today. Okay? These are not honest brokers of news. There's almost none left, by the way, which means you have to get from 4 or 5, and you got to kind of analytically now figure it out. The Wall Street Journal is a relatively honest provider of news. Not perfect, but more so than the New York Times, a lot more so than Facebook, a lot more so than Drudge if you're a conservative, or what? Anybody know what the liberal equivalent of Drudge is? Who's the what? Salon, there you go. Okay? Wall Street Journal's better than all of that. But it too has its agenda journalism. It's not nutball journalism, but it's agenda journalism. So you do have to be careful now of the democratization of source, right? But with that said, you need a lot of exposure. I mean, people were at my house yesterday, and the question was, Brewscast, because there's, books everywhere. How many books are you reading at a time? I said, I don't know, 5. I thought about it a little later. It's probably closer to 7, right? Because any place I might sit my butt for any reasonable length of time, there's a stack of books in progress. Because I don't want to sit down somewhere and not have one. And if I got to move it from place to place, I might sit down somewhere and not have one. So any place I might sit, my butt, the green chair in the room, which is where you ask the question, right? The chair in the other room with the hardline phone where I do interviews, because sometimes you'll dial in when you're supposed to, and now you're going to be waiting for a radio show, as you know, or for some, they're now going to have you on hold for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes while you're waiting to do the interview. So I got books right there in case I'm on hold for 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes. In the crapper, I got books. By the couch, I got books. Any place I sit down, so there's 5, 6, 7 books in progress. Right? That's the answer to your question. 80% of them are not going to be kept, by the way. They're going to be skimmed. A card may raise out of the deck, which is a page or 2. The book is ultimately going out the door. So like if you visit and you see, I don't know, downstairs there's about 1,600 books. Understand they're the survivors probably of 8,000. The rest of them died an early and ugly death. Right? There were 3 pages worth keeping. Some there's nothing worth keeping, right? If they're not ripped up, they get donated, you know, to the Goodwill store, because it doesn't have to be good, right, to go to the Goodwill store. But ironically, you would now that I think about it, if you really had goodwill towards people, you would not give them books you couldn't find. I'll have to rethink that equation, won't I? But up until now, that's the method. I mean, you know, if I go to Barnes & Noble, I come home with 50 magazines. I don't read them, really. I don't, you know, life's too short. But I skim them, and a card rises. And you go, oh, that I'll read. Right? The rest of it, on its merry way, right? But you need a lot. And you can't let yourself get where you're looking at the same crap all the time. You're talking to the same people. You're getting the same viewpoint all the time. There's sometimes a card raises out of something you profoundly disagree with. They could be 90% wrong about something, but 10% of it you might go, shit, they're probably right about this. Like, I think every war hawk should read Rachel Maddow's book, the title now escapes me, that she wrote about war and the military. Now, I don't agree. Rachel Maddow, if you don't know, is a political commentator on MSNBC. Okay? We probably, for $1 million, couldn't find 5 things in a year that I would agree with Rachel Maddow about. Generally, I find her offensive. Not just annoying, offensive. However, one night she's talking about her book, and I thought she actually made some sense. Got the book, read the book. She makes a lot of sense. She actually happens to largely agree with Trump, by the way, which she would hate the fact that that is the case. And every general, including Mattis, should read her book. And there's a few business things in the book. So even somebody you disagree with, or you would ordinarily not pay attention to, or you would find offensive, doesn't mean a card won't rise out of that deck. Most of you know, the first time I was in a green room with Trump, the question he asked me was, what 3 books are you reading? Now, it's such a great question because it presupposes you're reading 3 books at a time, right? Which automatically tells you he's reading 3 books at a time. Or the thought would never have entered his head in the first place, which is interesting in and of itself, because largely he has the public idea of him is he don't read anything and he's an idiot, which I can assure you from personal, neither one of those things is true. You may not like him, and you could have legitimate reasons to wish he wasn't president, but he ain't dumb, and he does read a lot. Skims more than he reads, but he reads a lot. So he said, what 3 books are you reading? And I answered him after a bit of thought, and got 2. Haven't heard of that one. Give it to me in like a sentence. Why should I read it? Fine. Here's a sentence about the book. He turns to person with pad and says, get me that book. Right? Now, think about what he just did. He had to be in the green room anyway. He had to kill 20 minutes before he goes on stage. He's got to make nice with the 8 or 10 people who have been stuck in the green room with him. He has no choice about those 3 things. But he still has a lot of choices now about those 20 minutes and those 7 or 8 people. So he only asked the question of 2 of us. So he quickly made a judgment. This person's an idiot. This person probably don't read. This person, okay, make nice, take picture, next, right? He made a judgment about two of us. Those two people might not be morons. And they might be reading something I don't know about that I might want to read, and I can use this time in a productive manner to find that out. I've been in a lot of green rooms with a lot of people. Never once has anybody else asked. So either everybody else has concluded I'm an idiot, maybe, or nobody else has this, I got to use every minute, and I want to see if I can get a card to raise up out of this deck, right? I always found it interesting in the green rooms at the big success events how few people ask, how does the money work? I get that the celebrities don't ask, but how few others. How does the money work here? Backstage, Trump, how does the money work? Gene Simmons, super conference. How does the money work? Right? I know how I'm getting paid. How the hell does this whole thing make money? That's what he wanted to know, right? Why? There might be a card in there. Who knows? And I'm stuck here signing books anyway. And in this case, I'm stuck with this guy because I'm the only one sitting there with him in the basement of the hotel while he's signing all the books. Now, he could ignore me. We could talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Or he could see if he could get a card to raise up out of that deck. Now, he would accommodate you if you wanted to talk about sex, drugs, rock and roll. But I'm not really interested in that either. I'd like to see if I can get a card to raise up out of him. Right? So we actually have a profitable conversation rather than see, if I want a shtick, I can read his book. Right? I can, he's written 3 books, so I can get the sex, drugs, rock and roll stuff. I don't need to have you tell me the story. I can go read the freaking story. Right? Let's talk about how your modus operandi, how the hell you function. Right? What is that reality show thing really like? They come to you, did you go to them? How did you get it? How does that money work? Right? And he said, you'd find this funny. Nobody ever asks me that. Well, 1% of the people are actually asking questions that might cause a card to raise up out of a deck a lot. Another 4% are asking them sometimes. 95% of them are never asking them. They're not asking these questions. They're bumbling their way along. They're seeing shit, right? I'm like our Disney guide, so I want to know what's new, how many people are paying the highest price, how many people are paying the medium price, how many do you do in a week, how many are regulars, how many aren't regulars, what's the 3 biggest problems. That's what I want to know. I don't really need him to tell me the story of how it wound up red brick. I got 120 Walt Disney books. If I'm curious, I can make a note. Oh, red brick. I can go home, look in the index, red brick. I can do that on my own. What I can't do is know how many people from which countries booked private guides this month. And he won't give me a complete answer, but he'll give me kind of an answer. And I can't even get it out of the annual report. So what you bring into you totally determines what you're able to do from an evolutionary standpoint and a revolutionary standpoint with your business. And most people don't bring in much. And by the way, you shouldn't read every book you buy. You shouldn't listen to every CD you get. You should skim. Let the card raise. You don't have to. Like if you get Stephen King's book on writing, I mean, if you want to write, if you want to be entertained, you read the first third of the book about his childhood and the dog that died and, you know, that crap. I don't care about any of that. I want to get to the chapters about how the hell he writes. That's what I want. So I'll skip that. Why would you read that book cover to cover? Because you need to get through 50 books this week that might have a rising card in them. So most people are not giving themselves really the opportunity to be evolutionary and to be revolutionary, right? They're just not doing it. And they shut off a bunch of things instantly. Oh, that's not relevant to me, right? That's just another little dotted line box, right? Is here's all that's relevant to me. No, there's a crap load of stuff that could be relevant to you. All right. We'll at least start one more before the lunch break because God knows I'm behind. So principle 7 on page 16 is never, ever, ever, ever start from scratch. It's too late. It's not technically that everything's been invented, but there's no real premium on invention. There's a history for almost everything. Everything you see now is a repeat or a hybrid of something that went before, which means there's a repeat or a hybrid for you to use, so you never have a blank page of any kind. It's horribly time inefficient to start from scratch, and time is the most perishable asset we have. You can replace anything else. You can replace people, you can replace money, you can replace stuff. You can't get the hour back. You can't do it. When that woman sits in front of me at the traffic light, it turns green and she's texting, I can't get that back. And I will resent her the last minute of life. I will remember that miserable, stinking woman. I usually don't even do it. I'm in line behind somebody at Starbucks a week ago. I swear to God, we're in line for 20 minutes. She gets the counter, she doesn't know what she wants. I'm going, so help me God. It's why I don't concealed carry. I might not shoot her, but I'd probably beat her over the head to a bloody pulp. I mean, I couldn't do it. It's never from scratch. So I understand when you look at things and you see them, think about, what am I seeing that didn't start from scratch? Take you through some examples. Elon Musk. What is Elon Musk when we look at Elon Musk? He's two things. Thomas Edison and P.T. Barnum. That's what he is. Right? There's nothing new there. There's a hybrid of Thomas Edison and P.T. Barnum. If you want to be the next Elon Musk, understand that's what you're seeing. Now go back and trace your sources. Bezos. He manages like Jack Welch, and he's built monopolies like the industrial barons of the industrial age. That's what he's doing. You want to study them if that's what you want to be. HBO has remade The Sopranos more times than you and I can count. All they're doing is changing the costumes. One show after another. It's in Old England. It's in medieval France. It's The Sopranos. Again and again. They got a template now. It works. Just do it over and over again. The CW network on TV, all the superhero shows. They're all Greg Berlanti shows. If you don't know Greg, his big hit was the book and the movie, He's Just Not That Into You. Greg used to be a relationship expert. Right? He's figured out the superhero template, okay, which is known superhero characters, a teen angst soap opera, like the old Beverly Hills 90210, and a little Twin Peaks thrown in. Every show's the same. Arrow, Supergirl, they're all the same. Watch them. Just watch one episode of each if you've never paid attention. It's exactly this template. Even Riverdale this year, which I thought was fascinating. Do you guys know, anybody watch Riverdale? A few of you. You got to watch a rerun. Watch the first show. So Riverdale, you all know what Twin Peaks is, right? And you maybe remember Smallville. So all the superhero teen shows on CW, you know, there's all kind of weird shit happening in the town where they live. Riverdale, he's taken the Archie comics characters and he's made a Twin Peaks show out of them. They're the same characters, Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica, all of them. And they're in Riverdale, the town they're in the Archie comics. But there's murders and weird shit and mystical happenings. And he's plunked them in Twin Peaks. And he's got a teen soap opera. He's turned them all into heroes. And he's put them in Twin Peaks, just like the other shows. It's incredible. But there's nothing new there. He didn't start with a blank page. He took these three things and he hooked them together. Disney's using the same Walt story template. The same one. They didn't change crap. And a few times they've gone away from it, they've drugged themselves back. Starbucks, it's a European coffee. Craigslist, it's the classified ad section of your newspaper. What used to be the classified ad section of your newspaper. Trump hasn't done anything new. I can give you Trump. Pat Buchanan, who did Huey Long. So if you want to see the speeches and you want to see the campaign, go YouTube Huey Long and go YouTube Pat Buchanan. He didn't do one damn thing new. Pictorially, he did JFK and Jackie and Camelot. That's what he did. That's what he's done. America loves its royalty. Okay? They haven't liked anybody like JFK and Jacqueline and to some extent Ronnie since. And here's what they had in common, right? Barnum, of course, and Howard Stern, who's a big buddy of his. Let's shock the shit out of everybody every chance we get. That's what we'll do. That's all he's done. My info report next month is all about how GKIC came to be, and it's called Amway Without Soap. That's all I did. And I explained it now in 36 pages for you. But that's what I did. I didn't create shit. Right? Not one original idea did I have. I did Amway without soap. All I did is everything we did in Amway to people who already had a business. That's all I did. Never start from scratch. You cannot afford to start from scratch. This is the order form from the success events. Here's what it looked like. For those of you who never saw it or don't remember it, it's a $18 million order form. So it's worth paying attention to. A couple little things. The little things are, I didn't say Peter Lowe, I didn't say success. Everybody associated the thing with Zig. Okay? So I use Zig. The other thing is it's got copy on it. Okay? The digital order form that the rest of them use just had the shit listed and the price. That's what you did. Okay? This has copy on it because you forget what I said up there by the time you get back here to buy and you're standing in line while you're buying. The back, by the way, which I didn't bring, but it has testimonials because you're standing there waiting to buy. And you have a choice of a $99 thing or a $268 thing. So you started back to buy the $99 thing, but this may convince you to buy the bigger thing. But bigger, the more important bit about this whole form is I didn't design an order form from scratch. This is a mail order form. the fact that it's not being used in mail order is really quite irrelevant. Who builds the best order forms? The mail order people built the best order forms, and not today's mail order people. The mail order people, when it was real mail order, Mary had to fill out a form, not talk herself out of it, write out a check, set it on the kitchen counter, tomorrow put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it in. And she'd already thrown the catalog out. That had to be a good damn form. That's why Halbert used mail order forms. So never start with a blank slate. I'm going to tell you one quick Disney story, and then we're going to break for lunch. It's a little-known Disney story of blank slate. So in the early 1990s, a group of Disney writers proposed something that had never been done at Disney before. So just think about wherever you've gone, whenever you've done, and you've proposed something that's never been done here before. And we're pretty successful. So we don't really want to do anything we've never done before. Leave us the hell alone. So these guys wanted to do an animated movie based on an original concept written from scratch. This had never been done at Disney before. Disney uses fairy tales that already existed. They go license stories that already existed. Nobody had done one from scratch. In this incredible creative enterprise, never been done. The studio chief at that time was Jeffrey Katzenberg. He was 29 years old. And he was extremely skeptical. But he threw it halfway under the bus. And he let him go pitch Eisner, who was CEO at the time. And pitch it to him as an experiment. So Eisner said, go ahead and put a group together if you want, and come and give me a pitch. So nobody wanted to be in the group because everybody thought this thing was going to, be horrible, and so nobody wanted anything to do with it. So the mastermind group is formed of people who, it's like the Polish volunteer army, and the guy that doesn't take two steps back is the volunteer. So in the meeting with Eisner, the pitch is going nowhere. It was a pitch for a complicated, multi-generational story set in an exotic location, told through animals, all imagined from scratch. This is what's being pitched. And groping for a reference, Eisner says, can it be King Lear with animals? Because everybody, think about it, wants a it tastes like chicken reference. Everybody wants, right? And somebody in the group said, no, but I think it could be Hamlet. We can do Hamlet. Now, by now, you got to know, right? The film won 2 Oscars, a Golden Globe. It was the highest grossing film of 1994. By 2014, it had earned over $1 billion. It continues generating money today. Movie, Broadway play, TV stuff on the Disney Channel, touring theater, merchandise. It's Lion King. All right? But it had never been done before. Now, contrary to myth, it really wasn't original at all. It was Hamlet with lions. That gave everybody a thing they could hang on to. It got it made when it wouldn't have been made before. If it had stayed blank slate, it never would have been green lit. It exists because somebody found a way not to make it start from scratch.